I built the best team in the company. Then got demoted. A few years ago, I got promoted at the software company I worked for. The company was called North Bridge Software, and at the time, I honestly thought this was going to be the moment my career finally took off. My supervisor, Mr. Carter, who was also the CEO, called me into his office and told me I had been personally chosen for a management position. He made it sound like an honor. He said the team was struggling. The numbers were bad. Morale was low. And they needed someone who actually understood the work to turn things around. Then came the catch. Even though it was a major promotion, I would not be getting a raise immediately. He said the company needed to see results first. According to him, once I got the team performing at the minimum required standards, we would sit down, review my performance, and adjust my pay. At the time, I thought that sounded reasonable. Naive, I know. But I believed him. So I accepted the promotion. For the next 2 years, I gave that team everything I had. I stayed late. I came in early. I answered messages after dinner. I skipped lunches. I spent weekends building new workflows, training people, fixing reports, and cleaning up problems that had been ignored for years. And it worked. Slowly, the team improved. Then they improved more. Then they became the best performing version of that team the company had ever seen. We were not just meeting the minimum standards, we were beating them by a lot. Every quarter, I asked Mr. Carter when we could schedule my raise review. And every quarter, somehow, there was a reason we couldn't. One time, he said budgets were being reviewed. Another time, he said leadership needed more data. Another time, he said HR was backed up. Another time, he said it wasn't the right moment because the company was restructuring. There was always an excuse. Eventually, I got tired of playing nice. So I went to HR. The HR director, Rachel, listened to everything. I showed her the original promotion agreement, the performance numbers, the quarterly reports, and the emails where Mr. Carter had said my raise would be reviewed once the team hit the standard. Suddenly, things moved very fast. Funny how that works. A review meeting was scheduled for the end of the month. For the first time in 2 years, I thought I was finally going to get what I had earned. 1 week before that meeting, Mr. Carter changed the rules. He rewrote the minimum performance requirements. And somehow, the new requirements were just barely above my team's current projected numbers. Not way above. Not part of some obvious long-term company plan. Just barely high enough that my team no longer qualified as successful. I went to his office immediately. I was furious, but I tried to stay professional. I asked him why the requirements had changed right before my review. He leaned back in his chair and said the company needed to adjust expectations because average performance had improved. He said it had nothing to do with my review, nothing to do with my raise, nothing to do with me, of course. Totally unrelated. A week later, I sat in that review meeting with Mr. Carter and Rachel from HR. I had walked in expecting to discuss my raise. Instead, Mr. Carter spent almost the entire meeting talking about how disappointed he was. He said my team had failed to meet the company's minimum expectations, the same expectations he had changed 7 days earlier. He said he expected me to go the extra mile next quarter. Then he said if the team failed again, disciplinary action might be necessary. I remember sitting there, trying not to react. Rachel looked uncomfortable, but she said nothing. Mr. Carter knew exactly what he was doing, and because he was the CEO, there was no one above him I could complain to. After that meeting, he started acting different around me. Not openly hostile, worse, smug. Every time he passed my desk, he had this little grin, like he knew he had trapped me, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I made a mistake. I decided to work even harder. I told myself I was going to make the team hit the new numbers no matter what. I was going to prove he couldn't keep moving the goalposts forever. So I pushed myself harder than I ever had before. I neglected my health, I barely saw my family. I worked nights. I checked reports before bed. I coached every weak spot on the team personally. And somehow, we made it. Against the new requirements, against the pressure, against everything, the team hit the numbers. Not barely. We actually hit them. For a few days, I felt like I had won. I thought Mr. Carter would finally have to sit in front of HR and admit that I had done exactly what he asked. But people like that don't lose fairly. They change the game again. A few weeks before the next review, Mr. Carter called me into a meeting. He said he wanted to create a training handout for the team. Something simple, he said. Just a guide to standardize expectations and keep performance consistent. I thought it was strange but not suspicious enough to refuse. So I joined the meeting. We talked through ideas. I suggested sections for the handout. I suggested assigning certain parts to different people. I suggested deadlines. But every time I tried to make the project concrete, Mr. Carter dodged it. If I said, "Should I have the first draft ready by Friday?" he would say, "Let's not rush it." If I said, "Should Evan help with the onboarding section?" he would say, "We'll decide that later." If I said, "Do you want this sent to the team next week?" he would say, "Let's table that for now." By the end of the meeting, nothing had been assigned. No deadline, no final format, no delivery date, no action item. So I filed my notes away and went back to my actual work. About a month later, I got an email from HR mandatory meeting. No context. When I walked into the room, Rachel was there. So was Mr. Carter. And I knew immediately something was wrong. Rachel said the meeting was about my failure to complete an assigned training handout. I was confused. I told her the project had been tabled. Mr. Carter calmly opened a folder and pulled out his own typed meeting notes. According to his notes, I had been assigned full responsibility for creating, finalizing, and distributing the training handout to the team. He had written that the deadline was 2 weeks after the planning meeting. He had written that I confirmed ownership of the task. None of that happened. I said that directly. I told Rachel his notes were not accurate. Mr. Carter acted offended. He said he was disappointed that I was refusing accountability. He said leadership required ownership. He said this was exactly the kind of behavior that made him question whether I was ready for management. I felt like I was losing my mind. I had my own notes, but mine were informal. His looked official, typed, organized, convenient. And because he was the CEO, his version became the truth. By the end of the meeting, I was written up. Then I was sent home for the day. Before I left, Rachel told me there would be organizational changes to help the department recover from my leadership issues. The next morning, I found out what that meant. I had been demoted. The team I had rebuilt over 2 years was taken away from me, and Mr. Carter replaced me with Evan, his assistant manager. Evan was the kind of person who agreed with everything Mr. Carter said before he even finished saying it. Within a week, Mr. Carter was telling people I had failed in the role. He said I lacked follow-through. He said the team had succeeded despite me, not because of me. He said he had given me every opportunity, but I couldn't meet expectations. The worst part is that some people believed him, because from the outside, all they saw was a CEO, an HR write-up, and a demotion. They didn't see the 2 years of unpaid management work. They didn't see the moving targets. They didn't see the meeting where he avoided giving me a clear assignment. They didn't see him create a paper trail after the fact. I still don't know why he wanted me gone. Maybe he never planned to give me the raise. Maybe he thought I was becoming too expensive. Maybe he wanted Evan in that seat from the beginning. Or maybe he just enjoyed reminding people that he could do whatever he wanted. There was no revenge, no satisfying ending, no dramatic moment where everyone found out the truth, no company-wide apology, no justice. The bad guy won. I stayed with the company for a while after that, mostly because I needed the paycheck. But something in me changed. I stopped giving extra. I stopped sacrificing my nights. I stopped believing that hard work automatically gets rewarded. Because sometimes the person above you is not looking for excellence. They are looking for control. And if you prove they were wrong, they won't promote you. They'll just change the rules until you lose.